The MacCHESS crystal centering application. The interface has a crosshairs that's been pre-aligned to the position of the beam. The diameter of the circle is 100 micrometers. There's a scale bar as well. The simplest case, you've just mounted a crystal. It's visible in the interface. You double click on your sample and it gets moved to the beam center. Then you want to get the third dimension. You rotate by 90 degrees and double click again. Okay, that's a good initial centering. Now maybe you want to zoom in. So find the zoom control and go into about 10 or 12,000. And you can do the same thing again. Just double click. Turn by 90. Double click. Okay, that should be good enough. The beam size is approximately the size of the circle, which again is 100 micrometers. Alternatively, you could just hit the auto center button and all of those steps would be done automatically. Let's consider another case. You've just mounted a crystal, but it's not visible in the interface. So first thing you'd want to do is zoom the camera out all the way, and it's still not visible. Try rotating by at least 180 degrees. If it's just a bent pin, then your sample should swing by the camera. There it went. So I'm just going to go up as close to the top as I can get and double click, and that should bring it down into view. Okay, and you can proceed from there. Let's consider another example. I've just mounted a crystal and it's not visible. I'm zoomed all the way out. I rotate by 180 and it's still not showing up. The next thing I would want to try is to come over to the side where the pin is coming in. There's an indicator here. This pink pin symbol is just to tell you which direction the sample's coming in from. So I go to the edge there and I double click, and now my sample comes into view, and proceed from there. Alright, now let's review everything in the interface. Down in the right corner here we have a tabbed panel. There's a log panel which is not much use to you. The zoom panel is the most useful. 0 is zoomed all the way out. You can zoom into 10 or 12,000 for a better look at your crystal. You could go further than that if you want, but at some point you exceed the resolution of the camera. There's a focus adjustment. Do not mess with that. If your sample is out of focus, it's probably in front of or behind the focal plane, and the way to bring it into focus is to center it. There is a camera panel. There you could adjust the gain and the exposure setting. Normally the camera is running at a default 7.5 frames per second. If the exposure gets bumped a little, it might come down to a slower speed. There you can see it came down to 3.5 frames per second. So if I just adjust that a little bit, I can bring it in. If something looks off, you can try the auto setting and have it set itself and then bring it back to manual. You can see that bumped the exposure setting, so I'll tweak that again. You can play with the color balance if that entertains you. Lighting can also be adjusted. There's a slide bar here under the Lux panel. You can turn the light off. You can turn it on to various degrees. It's white LED lighting. Okay, next we have the translation controls here. The arrow keys will translate your sample by this step size. You can change the step size either by typing into the text box here or by manipulating the slider. The auto center button we covered. Over here we have the phi controls. You can rotate phi by various angles, which are useful for centering. The home will calibrate the air-bearing phi motor. Here's your readout of the current phi setting. This gizmo here is both a readout and an adjustment. Up at the top menus, admin only, you should stay out of there. That's not for you. Visual aids, you can individually turn off the crosshairs, the scale bar, the directional arrow, if those are blocking your view. Or there's a client remote delay setting here, which brings up a separate panel. That will institute a delay between frames. In this case it's set for 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. That's adjustable. If I turn that on and dismiss the panel, that slows down my video feed, which makes it a little jumpy. That would be useful if you were connected remotely, because the full streaming speed of the interface will swamp a internet connection. I'm going to turn that off again here. And finally we have the Save Photos menu. You can save a single photo of just what you see in the interface. It'll include your sample and the visual aids like the crosshairs and scale bar. Just make sure you set the directory correctly. You can save multiple snapshots separated by a phi rotation if you want to thoroughly document your sample. Or if you really like using lots of disk space, you can save some video, which is the full streaming speed that you're seeing in the interface. And that's pretty much everything for the MacCHESS crystal centering interface.